Hello, everybody. It's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course, I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. Now, this week, I was feeling a little bit whimsical, so I decided that we would focus on 3 films all about fairy tales, specifically fractured fairy tales. Now, if you don't happen to be familiar with the term, it's just a retelling of a traditional fairy tale in a new way. A lot of times these will skew, say, much darker than a Disney version, but if you've read Grimm fairy tales, those were really gruesome and really dark. So I don't think these are out of the realm of, you know, reasonable. These are often stories that have been updated in some way, maybe to make them a little bit more relevant, but sometimes just to be a new version of the story, and they're all really, really solid, today's picks, and I enjoyed every single one of them, and I hope that you will as well. So all of these films, as always, are available entirely for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card, and with that, we're going to go ahead and jump right into the Rex. Okay, my first pick of this week is a biggie. It's available on Canopy, and that is 2012's Blancanieves. This movie is amazing. In addition to being my first recommendation of the week, it is also my pick of the week. If you only watch one of these recs, let this be the one. It's so, so good. Blancanieves is a retelling of the classic Snow White. It is also a bullfighting story, as well as a silent film tribute. If you had ever told me that those 3 things were going to go together, I would have thought you were nuts, because what? But somehow the filmmakers really do make those elements blend together in a way that creates a phenomenal, phenomenal movie. As you may have guessed from the title, Blancanieves is a Spanish film, but you don't have to deal with subtitles. Since it is a silent film, there's no dialogue, which is absolutely lovely. I know not everyone does subtitles, and this really, really kind of changes the game in that regard. Like most silent films, every once in a great while you'll get a title card that has maybe 5 or 6 words on it, but other than that, and those are really quite sporadically placed throughout the film. It's not like you're getting a title card every 30 seconds. The story is visually told by the movements of the actors, by the way the camera pans across scenery, expressions on faces, and that's it. And these actors do an amazing, amazing job of portraying and expressing different feelings and tones, and everything makes sense. There's no point where you're kind of puzzling, oh, what did they mean? I don't really get it. It absolutely does come across, and it's not overdone or anything like that. It's just a really incredibly well choreographed film. Now, in addition to those elements, the silent aspect of this film is heightened by the filmmaker's choice to make this film entirely in black and white, which I actually think needs to happen. So the play of shadow and light is such a huge thing in this movie, especially when we're talking about the actors' faces. By having everything be in such stark contrast, every expression is heightened. When the eyebrows go up, it really becomes very, very clear, because you're dealing with like the dark slash of eyebrows against lighter skin, and every expression has more intensity and more intention to them. And since there are no words, like, all of that has to be kind of over the top isn't the right way to put it, but more emphatic, I suppose, is probably a better way. And by having that stark black and white contrast, it really, really does make everything pop. It's really quite beautiful to see on screen. And not just with the actors themselves, but with all of the setting. There are a couple of scenes where that stark light and dark contrast really, really makes everything absolutely visually almost abrupt. Say in some of the bullfighting scenes, watching this streak of dark run across the arena that's all light and sand and everything is kind of harrowing, and it heightens the emotion while you're watching. I mean, the filmmaking choices are so spot on. And I don't know if it's because the movie is so uniquely made and intended that those choices become so obvious, but they really, really do end up being as much a part of the story as anything else. Um, so this is a quite dark, like very dark retelling of the Snow White fairy tale. It takes place in 1920s Spain, and has the veneer of bullfighting culture on it. So, most everyone is familiar with your baseline Snow White story, but having that sort of different cultural element really sort of pops new elements of interest, and they do it in a pretty seamless way. It's not just like tossed on top, oh, we're making a bullfighting Snow White, which sounds like, I guess, kind of oddly intriguing anyway, but everything sort of blends together in a way that makes even more sense. You get more from the storyline being about that bullfighting concept. And the extra drama, if you've ever seen like footage of old bullfighting arena battles, everything is really like hyperextended, super duper expressive, and all of that, of course, lends itself super well to a silent black and white movie. Watching the almost dance like movements of the bullfighters on screen, it's a ballet. I mean, that's really what we're dealing with at this point. And it absolutely kind of heightens the efficacy of emotional expression when you see all of these things happening, and they've got the over the top movements and super dramatic expressions on the bullfighters' faces. That's all that just adds to the storyline. The other thing that is really vital to this movie working is the music and the score. If you've ever watched, traditional old-fashioned silent movies, music does play a big role. But this one, it's almost like it's another character in the film, sort of guiding you, to feel things that maybe the actors aren't necessarily expressing, or in contrast to what the actor is expressing. If a character on screen actually has ill intent but looks beautiful and actually and doesn't make it look like she has ill intent, the music behind her shows her true colors, and that was a really interesting additional element to the film. The cinematography, goodness, it's just very lovingly done. The way that the camera angles know to play off faces and to play off movements, and while that's always an element in any film, a good cinematographer knows that his or her camera work is going to make or break a scene. Again, the limitations of this film make all of that much more apparent, because everything else is much more in need of good camera work. So that's another fantastically done element in this. This one was one of those films that across the board received critical acclaim. Sadly, I didn't know any of that, because I probably would have heard the concept and been like, I really don't like Snow White, and not that interested. But I honestly have not had a viewing experience like this in a very, very long time, where I was so intrigued by all of the different elements that I was seeing and the interplay with all of those different things. It was the winner of 10 Goya Awards. The Goya is essentially Spain's largest film award, and it won for Best Original Screenplay, Best Actress, Best Film, and it was nominated for tons of international awards. It was also, I believe, the Spanish submission for the International Academy Award that year. I don't think that it made it into the shortlist, but it was the film that Spain picked. I mean, critical acclaim everywhere, and just an incredibly effectively done film. Interesting little tidbits. The role of the wicked stepmother was actually written for the actress who ended up playing her. The actress is Maribel Verdú. You might know her from, say, Y tu mama tambien. And she is so perfect. She's the one who won for Best Actress, and so well deserved. Um, she has one of those faces that has this very sort of cold beauty, and she's absolutely gorgeous, right? But she plays up that sort of the lines of her face and the way that she can hold it and make herself seem cruel without saying anything. It's just, it's very understandable why they wrote this role for her, and she really embraces all of the elements of it. And all of the elements of the whole silent film acting as well. She clearly has watched a ton of silent films to sort of see how different performers express different things, and she just does an amazing job, as do all of the actors. I mean, across the board, whether we're talking about the two women who play Snow White, both Snow White as a child and then as an adult, um, the actor who plays her father, and let me just say, the two of them, the little girl especially and her father, are, every time they're on screen, and they don't have a huge amount of screen time together, but every time they're on screen, it makes your heart bleed. The two of them have such phenomenal chemistry, and they're telling this incredibly tragic story with elements of hope and love, and then when different things pan out the way that they do, it's just incredible. Um, so yeah, we, even without dialogue, these actors are just amazing. Maybe even more so because they have that limitation, and you know, they walk the line of how to be performative about expression without being over the top, and they all do a great job with it. Um, for whatever reason, other odd tidbits, 2012 was the year of Snow White for some reason. So you have Blancanieves that came out. You also have Mirror Mirror starring Julia Roberts that came out. And then you also had Snow White and the Huntsman with Charlize Theron. All three of the stepmothers in all three of the films were very definitely cast with actresses who were bigger names than the young women playing Snow White. You've got Maribel Verdú, you have Julia Roberts opposite, I think it was Lily Collins, right, in Mirror Mirror, and then Charlize Theron opposite Kristen Stewart. Whilst Kristen Stewart was, riding the high of the Twilight films, Charlize Theron was still Charlize Theron, and I would say that's probably the biggest, I guess, acting rivalry as far as who is audiences being familiar with two people. But the fact that the wicked stepmother has to be played by these women who are so known and so representative of gorgeous women in contemporary society, I think that really says something about that particular role in the story. No matter what language you're talking about, what version of that story you're telling, she's a key element. And honestly, I've watched all three films, and I think the most effective version of that wicked stepmother really is Maribel Verdú's character. I mean, the others do a really solid job with the ones that they have, but there's just something about this film and something about her performance that just, I think will stick with me for a long time. So if you are looking for an incredible film that is very, very different from most of the movies that are out there right now, with phenomenal performances, with interesting themes, great acting and music, it's just a really fantastic movie. Please, please, please check out Blancanieves. It's available on Canopy and is my pick of the week, a must watch. Okay, next recommendation is available on Hoopla, and that is 2016's Beauty and the Beast. This one came out about a year or so before the Disney live action version, but I gotta say, I do prefer this one. It is your pretty standard retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but it adds the Beast's backstory and his tale of how he transitioned and was cursed into a beast, and that in itself is its own separate, beautiful, tragic story. I 100% would watch a movie just about that. One of the other things that I absolutely adored about this Beauty and the Beast was the film's color scheme. I don't know what exactly they do, but everything has this really beautiful, rich tone, but there's almost like a metallic finish on some of the things in the film, and it just really gives it an odd and unusual vibe that I absolutely adored. I think it works so well with the fairy tale setting, uh, almost as if you're looking at something from the past. It's like everything is antiqued. There's a good word for it. I don't know why it was so hard for me to come up with that, but there's almost an antiqued veneer on top of these gorgeous lush colors, except for when we dive back into the backstory, into that tale of the beast's curse. That is just lush, beautiful color, vibrant color, more so than anything else, and it's almost like that's the real part of the story. And it just, I don't know, it just really, really stuck with me over time. Um, you have your traditional Beauty and the Beast tale where Belle ends up essentially a prisoner of the beast, and their relationship develops from there. There's conflict because they have such disparate personalities, but they find commonality at the end. And all of that is pretty straightforward, but it's those little extra bits and pieces that make this something kind of special. And like I said, I would watch a movie about the beast being cursed in a second, especially from these performers. Speaking of the performers, your two leads are fantastic French actors. You've got Vincent Cassel playing Beast. He's always amazing. I have never seen him turn in a dud performance, and I've seen him in a lot of movies. And Lea Seydoux, I have seen her in quite a few things in recent years, and she's just does a good job with whatever she's in. She's beautiful, but she doesn't just play the beautiful girl. There's always much more going on beneath the surface, and I always really appreciate that. And the two of them, their chemistry on screen is really what continues to drive the story forward. What else I thought was kind of odd about this is while I'm watching, I kept thinking, oh, that's kind of a throwback, or, oh, I recognize scenes very similar. But the scenes were not from other Beauty and the Beast retellings. The things that I was picking up on. There were actually a lot of interesting little shout outs and nods to Ever After, the Cinderella retelling that starred Drew Barrymore. There were quite a few moments, and I don't know if that was intentional or if it's it just happens that those were things that I picked up on, and because I do enjoy the Ever After story as well. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I definitely kept picking up little pieces. And I guess that's probably more because of the French background of the storylines that than anything else. But that was definitely an odd thing for me to realize as I was watching the movie. I'm like, why do I keep thinking of a Cinderella story when I'm watching Beauty and the Beast? Odd. But yeah, if you are looking for something that still stays fairly traditional, that is visually gorgeous. I mean, it's just such a beautiful, beautiful, and beautifully filmed movie. If you're looking for something with good chemistry between your lead actors, and that just has a hint of something new. Again, that backstory, I still am really, really very much enamored with it. Check out Beauty and the Beast that's available on Hoopla. It is a French film, but the version available is dubbed into English, so you're not dealing with subtitles again. So anyone can watch, not just foreign language film fans. So again, Beauty and the Beast available on Hoopla. It's a must watch. Okay, final recommendation for the day. This one is available on Hoopla, and it is 1989's Into the Woods. I think a lot of contemporary movie watchers are probably a little bit more familiar with the 2014 Disney adaptation of Into the Woods. First of all, Into the Woods was originally a stage musical. It tells the intertwining tales of Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, Jack and the Beanstalk, Rapunzel, and others. And then it supposes what happens after Happily Ever After. The 2014 Disney version does a very serviceable job with it. Uh, very beautifully done, lots of great cinematography, some fairly decent singing. These are not musical theater actors by any stretch, but they do a good job with the roles that they have. But it is a very sanitized version of Into the Woods. Like, a lot of the themes are toned way, way down or removed completely, which I think does a disservice to the story. So this is me on my soapbox and very get off my lawn about stuff like that. I really, if you're gonna make Into the Woods, I think you should make Into the Woods. That's bottom line. But this is not about the Disney version. This is about the 1989 adaptation. And what I absolutely adore about this particular adaptation is that it is a strict filmed stage production. When you're watching, it feels like you're watching the stage musical. It also stars the original Broadway cast. So if you grew up with the soundtrack, if you are familiar with that era's massive stage performer cast, like, this is the ultimate version of this story. And because it's a strict filmed stage adaptation, uh, all of the intents, all of the underlying themes are intact. They have not removed anything. They haven't sanitized everything. It is Into the Woods as it's intended to be done. So it gets dark. It does. I mean, again, I've mentioned this before. Grimm's fairy tales are dark stories. They're absolutely not the Disney versions that a lot of people know. But this one gets really dark in some places, and I think it needs to, because that's how we get the arc of some of these characters, like the tragedy that's mixed in, and the whole, it's a story about aging, and it's a story about children, and it's a story about real life in juxtaposition with a fairy tale anyway. So you've got a phenomenal cast. You've got Bernadette Peters playing the witch. You've got Joanna Gleason. These are two Tony award-winning actresses. Chip Zien plays the baker. You have gorgeous music. I mean, these are people who are trained to be musical theater singers. Like, this is what they do, and of course they're going to sing these songs better than versions that of people who are not trained to do that, who just happen to kind of be able to sing, but we're not trained to tell a story through this kind of methodology. You have Stephen Sondheim's incredible score and music. I am a massive Sondheim fan. I love almost everything that he's done, and Into the Woods is just sort of, it just is a great example of so many things that he does well. And just in general, the story itself I find really interesting, and I love the different relationships at play that we get to see, how they shift and how they change, and the song "No One Is Alone" is so powerful in this, and Children Will Listen, another one that is just so effective because of the performances. So if you're looking for a really phenomenal set of fairy tales done in a totally new way, Into the Woods is this 1989 adaptation is definitely the way to go. It's got phenomenal performances. I mean, these are the people who made this story famous. It's got incredible music and incredibly performed music, and it's just a real experience. So if you are interested in stage productions, like I said, it feels like you're watching a stage play, because that's what this is, a filmed stage performance. If you love music, if you love Sondheim, if you enjoyed Disney but maybe felt like something was missing, or you're looking for a little bit more from the story, check out this version. It's available on Hoopla. 1989's Into the Woods. It is an absolute must watch, and just go watch it. You won't regret it. All right, so those were our recommendations for Fractured Fairy Tale Week. If you have any recommendations that you would like to share with us, please comment with those below. I always love getting film recs and checking out new movies. If you have any recommendations for themes you'd like to see us cover in the future, please, please, please recommend those. Definitely always looking for help with that. I thought this week was loads and loads of fun. I have a couple other movies that I'd like to rec in the future, and I got them on my list. I just need to fit them in. But these three films were really, really great. They are thoroughly enjoyable, and I do hope that you'll check them out. If, however, these three do not appeal, make sure you visit our digital services, both Hoopla Digital and Canopy. There are thousands and thousands of films available on them. You will find something that you like no matter what. All you need is that Milan-Berlin library card, and you are set for free movies. So with that, thank you so, so much for joining me. It really is a delight to be able to put these together, and I always look forward to it. And with that, I'm going to close out the episode, and hopefully I will see you next week. Bye-bye.